See if we get any people who need help with anxiety today. Sorry, just sorting out my phone stand there. Anyone who's joining, I talk about anxiety, try and bring some clarity and reassurance on what can be a complicated topic for people, overcomplicated by therapists, undercomplicated by doctors who call it just anxiety, which is incredibly infuriating. So I like to come here and just tell you what I've learned from my lifelong suffering of anxiety, but now recovering from anxiety. So I just come on here and share what I've learned in the hope that it helps other people. And if you've got questions about symptoms, about thoughts, about anything, just let me know. Daily, hourly panic attacks, I've been there, my friend. Oh, man, I've been there. What's your fear? Tell me what your fear is. Is it that you're going to die, go mad, lose control? What's your fear? I had, just to give you some context here, so from around 2010 to probably a bit earlier actually, at least 10 panic attacks a day, sometimes 15, and I could have panic attacks that was just all day long. So I understand, my friend. I now have, I don't know how many panic attacks I have now, but I can't count them, it's that few. Health related. Is it that you're going to die immediately? Is that what your fear is? Is the fear that you're going to drop dead immediately? Because that's what mine was. Mine was that I was going to drop dead. How I recovered from those panic attacks was using a method taught in a book called The Panic Switch. And in that book, you stand and you face your fear. So what I used to do, and why my panic attacks got worse, I used to try and distract from them, breathing exercises. I'd run around the house manically. I'd ask for reassurance. I would ring people. I would make sure I was never on my own. I could literally never be on my own, ever. Call ambulances, go to A&E. It was horrendous. Nothing worked, like nothing, until I started learning about the neurobiology of anxiety and panic attacks. And I came across through, it took a long time, but I eventually came across a book called The Panic Switch. And what I had to do was stand there on my own, completely on my own, not with somebody next to me, just to keep an eye on me, just in case I dropped dead, on my own, and face the fear head on and say, go on then, kill me. I'm done with you. But I would stand there strong, legs shoulder width apart, stood up straight, chest out, head up high, and I would stand there and say, go on then, kill me. Do your worst. Fucking kill me. Do it. That's what I would do. And to begin with, I could only manage 20 seconds before I was back to get my juggling balls and my Rubik's Cube and my blood pressure monitor and my oximeter. I could only do it for 20 seconds at a time, and I'd count backwards. And gradually, I could do it for longer and longer. And eventually, the panic stopped. Because I took the panic out of panic. I took the fear out of the fear. I was still afraid, because I was afraid, but I took the panic out of panic. So panic had no more leverage anymore. No more leverage. And that's how I overcame the 15 panic attacks a day. I worked out that I've had upwards of 30,000 panic attacks in my life. And I'm not talking just a bit of a racing heart here and a bit of shortness of breath. I'm talking full on fucking heart rate 180, can't speak, can't move sometimes, panic attacks. That's what I'm talking about. And that's how I stopped them. The book, if you want to read the book, it's called The Panic Switch by Jeffrey Hames or Jeffrey Hames. He's also got a website, panicend.com. Check it out. The worst is thinking about breathing, right? So I'm somebody who suffered from anxiety for a long time, and I've learned a lot of bad stuff, and I've eventually learned the good stuff, right? Breathing exercises when you have breathing anxiety are the worst thing you can do, because you're already focusing on your breathing. The last thing you need to do is add extra thought there. However, when I read Dr. Weeks' book, Dr. Claire Weeks, which is my recovery model and Bible and foundation of my recovery, she had an exercise in there, and it's not a breathing exercise per se. And I thought, oh, for fuck's sake, not another breathing exercise. That's honestly what I thought when I read it. And I was like, do you know what, I'm going to try it. Because, that sort of breathing anxiety I'm talking about was obviously the obvious hyperventilation, but I could rationalise that one. It was the air hunger, feeling like I can't get air into my lungs, feeling like I'm in a vacuum and there's no air, just feeling like I wasn't breathing quick enough, shallow breathing, all that stuff, just feeling like my breathing was going to stop. And I still get it, but nowhere near as much. And when I do, I go to this exercise. And the exercise is you empty your lungs naturally. So the next time you breathe out, you just empty your lungs. You keep breathing out until your lungs are completely empty, and then try not to breathe back in. Try to stop breathing. Essentially, exhale completely. So don't inhale and hold your breath. Exhale completely, and then try not to breathe back in. And you're probably sat there thinking, what a load of shit, Tom, that's not going to work. But two things happen. The first thing that happens is that you face your fear of stopping breathing, and your body takes over. So you have to try not to breathe in for as long as you can, and eventually your body takes over. So that's the first thing that you show yourself. That's the first thing that happens. The second thing is, when you focus on trying to stop breathing, the one thing that you're most terrified of, your mind wanders onto other things. It's ridiculous. By facing the fear head on, empty your lungs entirely so you're not putting strain on your lungs by holding air in there. Empty them entirely and wait for your body to take over. And if you repeat that exercise over and over and over again until you're bored, right? That's what happened to me. I used to get bored, but it stopped me worrying about my breathing. And now that is my go-to exercise, and that's the only breathing exercise. And it's the only thing really that I apply a technique to a specific thing, is the breathing thing. Rory, will you stop? Rory, stop. Sorry, it's my dog. He's decided to start biting me. Here, chew this. Sorry about that. I keep thinking I've got something seriously wrong. I've been nearly fainting. It's lasting all day. Karen, I love the way you've worded this, because it is so anxious the way you've worded this. You think you've got something wrong, right? Seriously wrong, right? That's been my life for the last 20 years, right? So I totally identify with you. I totally understand. But the way you've worded the next bit, I've been nearly fainting. How do you know you've been nearly fainting? Because you felt like it. And you have connected this feeling with this belief that you are about to faint. Now, I felt, oh God, the fear of fainting ruled my... There was so much in my anxiety. It was cardiophobia, breathing, fear of losing consciousness, dizziness, all sorts of stuff. But feeling faint, and I think that's still one of the most difficult ones to deal with. But I'm yet to faint, Karen, as are you, I imagine. And so the way, again, I overcame that was to stand there and face it. Stand there strong. So what happens is, when these symptoms start to happen, the brain, the threat response kicks in. All right, so the feeling of faintness and the feeling of dizziness comes along, and it might be quick or slow. It might be a really quick onset feeling of faintness and dizziness, or it may just be this general feeling of faintness and dizziness there all the time. But either way, the threat response activates. Now, notice I'm not calling it fight or flight, and I do that on purpose because that's a very new age therapist thing to call it. But it's now I've learned about the human body. The threat response is not limited to fight or flight. As we have evolved as humans, it's not just there for when we were hunter-gatherers, right? It's evolved. So anyway, the threat response activates when there's faintness or feeling or any physical symptom for that matter. And it says, hey person, is this dangerous? And then it waits for your response. And the only response it listens to is your behaviour. So for me, when I was feeling faint or dizzy, well, I would run to the sofa or rush to the nearest thing that I could sit down on, just in case I passed out, head between my legs, head in my hands like this. That was a resounding yes, this is dangerous. Or I would check my pulse, or I'd go get my blood pressure monitor and check my blood pressure and my oxygen levels, all this stuff. I'd even start doing coordination tests like this, right? I'd even start doing coordination tests, standing on one leg, say things like tongue twisters to see if I'm having a stroke. Eat a bad, picked a peck of pickled peppers. See, I've said it that much, right? I can say it pretty fucking quick because I've said it that much in panic attacks, trying to convince myself I'm not having a stroke, that this is what it's been like. So I totally understand. But the feeling of faintness, I had to start challenging it. I'm presuming, Karen, you and many other people on this TikTok live, you've been to your doctors and you've been told you've got anxiety. You've probably had God knows how many blood tests. You might have even had ECGs, but you've been checked out at some point, right? And yes, the feeling of faintness might have changed since you were last checked out. And yes, your blood test might have been 6 months ago, and what if something's changed? I understand all that, but forget that anxious thinking for a moment. So this feeling of faintness, you have to challenge it, because a feeling of faintness isn't fainting. A feeling of dizziness isn't being dizzy. So a doctor, if you faint, a doctor's concerned. If you are being dizzy, you cannot walk in a straight line at all. You cannot walk without a stick because of the dizziness. And I genuinely can't walk without a stick as opposed to feeling like you need one. Being dizzy to a doctor is important, right? Fainting is important, but feeling faint and feeling dizzy, it's not that they don't care, it's that it's rarely anything medically important. And when it is, it's very easily diagnosable through blood tests. Now, how I've learned, I'm not a doctor, I don't have any medical training, but how I have learned that is by over the years asking questions of doctors over and over and over again. And no one doctor has given me single complete information. But eventually, over the years, I've picked up, and I've been through enough 999 triages as well, by the way. I've picked up stuff and I've learned things along the way. And eventually, I've discovered this. And it was a consultant neurologist that actually gave me that final piece of information where he said that being dizzy and feeling dizzy are two different things, two very different things to a doctor. And feeling dizzy and feeling faint is very rarely of medical importance. And when it is, it's very easily diagnosable on blood tests. So you have to challenge these beliefs. And the only way to challenge it, just remember this, whenever panic strikes, whenever fear strikes and says, hey person, fucking do something because this is dangerous, right? It is asking you a question. Hey person, is this dangerous? And the only way to answer is with your behaviour. Now, you can't answer the question in your anxious state because you don't know. Your anxiety and everything in your fear and everything in your being will tell you that it is dangerous. Because what if this time it's different? What if this time I don't check my pulse? I don't ask for reassurance. I don't do other safety behaviours. What if this time it's different? You have to play the odds. You have to. It's the only way. There's no way to recover without feeling afraid. No way. And I've gone from somebody who was completely bedridden with my anxiety, constantly with the oximeter on my finger, checking my blood pressure every 20 minutes. Oh man, when I think back, the number of paramedics that have been in this very room is insane over the years. So remember, behaviour is the answer. So when the threat response strikes, this time say no, it's not dangerous, but tell it through your behaviour. How? Don't do anything about it at all. Don't do those safety behaviours. You have to stop. The smartwatch has to come off your wrist. Don't bullshit yourself that you're counting your steps, because I used to do the same thing. Bullshit myself that I was counting the steps. It was bollocks. I wanted to monitor my heart rate. So the smartwatch has to go. The oximeter, the blood pressure monitor, it all has to go. The thermometer. I used to carry all this shit around with me. My bag was so heavy. It all has to go. The Googling has to stop. The reassurance, asking family and friends. Even the little sly bits of reassurance as well. Is it hot in here or is it me? I know all the tricks. I've done them all. It all has to stop. It's the only way. Right, I'm going to answer some questions now. How would you deal with cardiophobia? Exactly like I've just described. If you've been checked by your doctor and you've been told that your heart is fine, the behaviours have to stop. It's all down to behaviour. If I'm walking too long, my legs hurt so much. I know everywhere I'm nearly fainting. So that's what I've just talked about. Your heart is stronger than you think. Absolutely. If you could dissect, in fact, I urge you all to do this. Stop Google searching all the terrible illnesses out there and start Googling the anatomy of the human body. Maybe don't do this if you're in the throes of anxiety. But I think it's crucial to learn how the body works. And that was the turning point for me in 2020, was when I changed my Google searches from what are all these illnesses that are going to kill me? What are the rare diseases out there that have these symptoms? And instead, I changed my Google searches to how the fuck does the body work? And I started learning about it properly. And if you look at a dissection of the human heart, the heart muscles and the chambers of the heart and the blood vessels in and out are incredibly thick. If you saw how thick they were, you wouldn't be worried about panic damage in your heart. And I have it from a cardiologist. I asked him direct, is this damaging my heart or my blood vessels in any way? And he answered categorically no. You do get some doctors that will say the opposite. I've had a GP say it to me, and I think they say it to try and tell you that they're taking you seriously, but it's the worst thing you can fucking say. Bugs crawling over you, that's common. In my worst anxiety, I used to get that. And thankfully, I haven't had it in a long time, but there is no symptom anxiety cannot cause. Genuinely. There really is no symptom cause. Don't get me wrong, there are symptoms that it's incredibly fucking rare for it to cause fainting, right? It's very, very rare that panic can cause fainting. But Claire Weeks is my Bible. Breathing technique make me worse. Absolutely. Have you tried rehab with medication? I haven't tried rehab, no. And I'm chuckling because I'm an alcoholic, so I should have been in rehab. But I'm sober now. I've been sober for over 3 years. I start talking and saying things I regret. Yeah, that's quite common. Essential Help for Your Nerves is a great book as well. Self-help for your nerves is good enough to get started with, though. I feel sick constantly, which what helps this. Right, so feeling sick, so emetophobia, and see, I'm terrified of being sick and feeling sick. It scares the shit out of me. I hate it because I associate it with so many things. But again, it's all down to behaviour. So one thing we can do with anxiety is we can get stuck in a trap of taking things to try and ease our symptoms. So things like anti-sickness medication, avoiding foods that we think make it worse, avoid eating before we go out, avoid eating in front of other people. All of that behaviour is what feeds the feeling of feeling sick. Now, obviously, not everything is anxiety, right? You might just feel sick because you are genuinely feeling sick. So it's important to acknowledge that too, all right? But if you've got a bug, a true bug, you will vomit without control. Do you know what I mean? It's not that you'll just have this kind of underlying of feeling a bit sick, because that's just how illness works, really. Hyperventilating during exercise. Had this exact thing today. So I was going to go swimming today, but my dog, for some reason, was incredibly anxious, ironically. So I didn't want to leave him at lunchtime, so I went on my treadmill at home, and I had exactly this. And about 18 minutes on the treadmill, I was like, I'm going to have to get off, I can't breathe. And I didn't. I just stayed there and I kept walking. I was like, it's going to have to take me down on this treadmill. And whilst I was still on the treadmill, thoughts were racing through my mind. I had images of me collapsing, falling and hitting my head on the treadmill and then getting my legs stuck in the tread, and all sorts of stuff were racing through my mind. But I just kept walking. I was watching Netflix at the time. I just kept watching what I was watching on Netflix. The best tip I can probably give, if you need any, is slow down. Don't stop, just slow down. And I was on a bus, I felt like I was going to pass out. Well, I collapsed. Well, look, if you've been checked by your doctor, and you've been told that this feeling is likely anxiety, then the chances of you collapsing are just as much as everybody else in the world, the chances of them collapsing. Some things to consider with anxiety and anxiety recovery. There are basic things we need to get right. We need to make sure we're eating regularly and that we're eating the right foods. And obviously hydration, staying hydrated, avoiding alcohol at all costs, to be honest with you, because alcohol just fucks everything. And the reason is because with anxiety, every system in the body is all over the place. Your glucose and insulin levels are up and down all over the place. Oxygen and carbon dioxide, your blood pressure, your heart rate, your immune system, because when the threat response activates, viruses are a threat, so the immune system is part of the threat response. You've got the endocrine system and hormones releasing. All of the stuff going on inside the brain as well. The signals that are firing through your nerves are going haywire. So every system is going mental. It's up and down all over the place. There's a part of the brain that tries to restore balance to all of this. I've forgotten which bit it is now, but the periaqueductal grey, I think it is. I might be wrong there though. I'll have to check. Don't quote me on that one. But there's a part of the brain that tries to restore balance, and it just can't with all these systems going haywire. So going back to what we're saying, it's important that we stay hydrated, we eat regularly, and we eat the right foods. We want to try and avoid lots of caffeine. I'm not saying no caffeine, but lots of caffeine. Caffeine doesn't cause anxiety. Caffeine mimics anxiety symptoms, but that's not why I'm saying it. Why I'm saying it is you want to try and keep everything on a straight line as much as you can. You don't want blood sugar spikes and caffeine spikes and hydration levels being up and down. You want to try and stay on a level. Bananas are our best friend. So my point is, and obviously sleep as well. Sleep's important. Try and keep everything as balanced as you can that's in your control. And then use the medical assurance that you've undoubtedly had from doctors, plus what you're doing. You have to play the odds. I see every exposure therapy as a science experiment. Let's see if this time I do die. Let's see if this time I do collapse and pass out. The truth is, by the way, if you do collapse or faint, you'll faint for a few seconds and then you'll come back round again, and passers-by will help you. but I understand the fear and the terror. I totally understand it. It's probably the main thing that kept me locked in the house for so long was the dizziness and the fear of fainting. Right, let me read some more comments. I didn't read many comments last night. By the way, I'm saving my live recordings and I'm going to put them on YouTube. I didn't read many comments last night. By the way, I'm saving my live recordings and I'm going to put them on YouTube. I used to walk around everywhere like that with my hands out, right, holding on to everything that I walked past. Because the physical intensity of standing was just too much for me to bear. And it would either be the head pressure, the chest tightness, the neck tightness, the breathlessness, just this all over body tension that I used to get. But I just couldn't bear standing. And I was using my body as if it was weak and frail, or dizziness as well. The dizziness is very, very important, the dizziness. And I was using my body as if it was weak and frail, which was completely false. It is strong and not particularly fit because I wasn't exercising, obviously, and my diet wasn't great. My diet was terrible, but I was medically healthy. So why was I using my body as if it was weak and frail? Because that's how it felt. And that answers the question, hey person, remember the threat response is always asking you a question. Hey person, is this dangerous? And if is this dangerous? Are we really ill? If we use our body as if it is weak and frail, the brain learns from that. And we just end up stuck in this loop, in this sensitized state. For anybody who's interested, I've written a blog about the neurology and sensitization, the nervous system sensitization that goes on. It's not too long. There is a picture of it as well that describes the part of the brain. I wrote it tonight and posted it on my website. So if you want to check that out, you feel free. My website's linked on my TikTok profile. Hi Pip. Logan, good to see you, my friend. What's going on? Feeling your pulse in your throat. In the end, I could feel my pulse in my neck, just here, because you've got a pulse here, in my ears, on my eyebrow here, the tips of my thumb, at the top of my feet, behind my knees. These were all the places. And my stomach as well. I could feel my pulse in all these places. And I could tell you my heart rate without even checking my pulse, because I could feel it everywhere. I totally understand what it's like. The pounding heart when it's not racing is almost worse for me than the racing heart. Struggling to open up. Do you have any tips? It depends what you're struggling to open up about, really. It depends what you're struggling to open up about. That could be very deep-rooted. If it's about anxiety, then just be honest. The key to everything in life is just be honest, to be honest with you. Because we with anxiety, we lie so much to get out of situations, and it erodes our self-esteem and self-worth. Over the years, it just totally erodes it. In the end, I just stopped and I said, look, I can't go, my anxiety's too bad. And people either accepted that or they didn't. And if they didn't, well, fuck them. Do you know what I mean? Because it was the truth. And that's all I could do was be honest. Right, Rosie said, I found trying to pretend it's not there makes it worse. Right, Rosie, you're right. In the beginning, it does. Because you're so used to, you have this reinforced neurology in your brain that safety behaviours or distraction or whatever, it is the safe space. That brings safety. And that's wired in the neurology of the brain. So to begin with, you're absolutely right. And when I say to begin with, I don't mean the first hour or the first day. If you've had this for many months and years, you know, I've had it all my life, from as young as I can remember. So I'm talking 30 years of neurology's built up here. So me stopping all the safety behaviours didn't make it go away. It made it worse to begin with, because it was like, shit, you're not doing these things. What if, oh my God. And it was like that for a while. So the key is and like I've said, there is no way to recover without feeling afraid. So to begin with, it will make it worse. You have to have trust and faith in the process. Some things will get better very quickly though. But I don't disagree with you that it does get worse. Worrying one of your kids will be sick in the night. That's a really common thing, especially if you've got a metaphobia because you're worried there's going to be a sickness bug or a million journey. We can talk and you can ask as many questions as you like. Worrying and thinking too much when you wake up in the morning is terrible. So I had to perfect a morning routine. So when I wake up, the first thing I pick up is my phone, right? But what I don't do is unlock it and start scrolling. I'm very disciplined on a morning. I wake up, I pray. And it's just part of my alcoholism recovery is to pray to spiritual higher power. It's not really prayer, meditation, whatever you want to call it. But it's very quick, 30 seconds. I wake up, I pray, I hand my will and my life over, and I make my bed, I have a shower, I make a cup of tea, and I get dressed. And it's straight away, the moment I wake up. It's not I stay in bed ruminating. And I think that's really important, to get up and get going as soon as possible. Something just happened to my comments, and I'm not sure what, but it scrolled right the way to the bottom. So I have no idea where I was. I'm sorry. So if I've skipped your comments, I haven't done it on purpose. Is derealisation normal? Well, no, but it is normal for fear. So it's normal for anxiety and fear, but it's not normal. Well, I say that, that's not actually strictly true. Everybody feels weird from time to time if they've got stressful shit going on in their life. If any of you are lucky enough to have a time in your life where you remember not having anxiety, and there were little pockets for me in my late teens, early 20s, very small and few and far between, but there were some. If you've had a really busy day out, like Christmas shopping all day, right, and you're really stressed and you've got the kids with you and I don't know, you've got all the bags and you're waiting for the bus, and it's just a stressful affair. When you get home, you can have this feeling of derealisation because the stress response and the threat response is active. Specifically, the sympathetic nervous system is active. So there is an extent to say that it is normal. I've done a series of tests, and by the way, derealisation, acceptance of all these symptoms is the answer. Doctors have done a series of tests. I thought I was sick. Doctors always find nothing. That's because there's nothing physically wrong causing your symptoms. The problem, where do all these symptoms come from? From the nervous system and the neurology of the body. The nervous system is what causes all these symptoms. The functioning of the nervous system is what causes all these symptoms. I say that it's not just the nervous system, but the nervous system turns the volume up on a lot of the symptoms as well. And when you've had anxiety, chronic anxiety for a long, long time, eventually what you're feeling is simply the body functioning. So actually, a lot of the symptoms we feel in anxiety are not being caused by adrenaline itself. They're being caused by the nervous system being in a sensitized state. It's one of the reasons I avoid saying fight or flight, because it is completely inaccurate for chronic and severe anxiety. It's not inaccurate, it's incomplete to just say fight or flight. Because what about when you're not anxious? How does fight or flight come into it then? You see, it doesn't, does it? Because we all feel symptoms when we're not anxious. Why? Because the nervous system is sensitized. The signals are misfiring between the nerves. It feels the body functioning. There's a whole host of reasons. And your autonomic functions are all over the place, like I described earlier, your blood pressure, blood sugar, so glucose, insulin, hormones, it's all out of whack and all over the place. And it's part of the brain trying to restore homeostasis and balance to all of that all of the time. And it can't fight through the anxiety. Dr. Weeks describes it as being in an anxiety state, and it's absolutely spot on. It really is. Walking on clouds, feeling of walking on clouds. So I went on a ferry in 2009 in winter, and when I got off the ferry, I still felt like I was on a boat, and I felt like that for 10 years. It was fucking horrendous. I'm not even exaggerating. I felt like that for 10 years. And I went to the doctors and I thought it was all these different syndromes that I'd looked online, and so it was this, that and the other. It was anxiety. I'd become so sensitized to that dizziness feeling that I continue to feel it. Top left of your chest, down your arm, fingertips, is that anxiety. Look, if you've been, it can be anxiety, all right? I'm hesitating only because the chances of it being anything wrong with your heart, if it's something wrong with your heart, it doesn't come and go, really. Do you know what I mean? If you've been checked by your doctor and your heart's okay, and you've got anxiety, and you're doing all of the anxiety behaviours, then yes, 100% I would say it's anxiety. And it's been caused by muscle tension, sensitization of the nerves to detect every twinge, because we've associated this with, I'm going to die, I'm having a heart attack. I believe it's always either a trauma response or vitamins and minerals levels. So I used to always say that there's something wrong with my vitamins and mineral levels. I was convinced that it felt like that way. Trauma response, possibly. It certainly feeds part of it, but not everybody with anxiety has trauma. But, well, actually, that's not true. Everybody with anxiety traumatizes themselves with their own anxiety. If you've got panic disorder, you've got PTSD, right? You do. And I'm not in any way undermining people that have real trauma. I have real. I hate saying things like this because trauma is very subjective and it's not for us to decide the significance of people's trauma. I tend to stay away from the topic of trauma and PTSD, to be honest, for this reason, because it's too sensitive. But everybody with panic disorder has a form of PTSD because they were traumatized by the panic attacks. Any tips for feeling less anxious in social situations? I've never suffered. I'm assuming you mean social anxiety, or do you mean feeling physically anxious just about being out of the house and stuff? If you mean being socially anxious, I don't have any direct experience of ever being socially anxious myself. It's one part of anxiety I haven't particularly suffered with. However, I have learned a lot in my alcoholism recovery, and that is that we can't control what other people think of us. We can only be honest, kind, loving human beings. Right? That's it. That's all we can do. And if we're honest, kind and loving, and that is at the front and centre of who we are, if people still don't like us, that's their problem, not yours, because you're being a decent human being. And that's all you can do. And look, people are fundamentally selfish. They don't go home and think about what you sounded like, the words that you said, the way you were standing, the way you were eating, the way you were fidgeting. They just don't. People go home and we're all fundamentally selfish beings, and we go home and think about ourselves. I try not to these days, but get anxious for any little thing, please advise. Well, when your nervous system's in a sensitised state, Vanessa, anything can set you off, literally anything, because the functions in the brain that are controlling this whole shit show, shall we say, are so sensitive to flick on at the moment's notice. Just a breeze across your face is enough to send you into panic. So it doesn't surprise me. What I would suggest, Vanessa, is slow down, and one thing at a time. I listened to a podcast about how to manage your life like an A&E doctor. And in it was basically about red, amber, green, your life, basically. And that's what I started doing. And slow down, make to-do list, slow down, and just do one thing at a time. Is 14 milligrams a day of diazepam typical for panic disorder? 14 milligrams a day is, to somebody who's never taken diazepam, is a big dose. For somebody who has been prescribed diazepam for a long time, it's not a huge amount. No. However, 14 milligrams of diazepam will stop working within 3 weeks. And eventually you'll need 20 milligrams, and then 25, and then 30, and then 40. It just stops working. If you're getting any effect from it, it's likely either a placebo effect. If you've been taking it that long and you still think it's having an effect, it's either a placebo effect or stopping withdrawal. But diazepam has quite a long half-life, so you don't go into withdrawal for within a day of stopping taking it. It takes quite a few days before diazepam withdrawal starts. The reason I know so much about this, by the way, is because I've been prescribed benzos for such a long time, diazepam specifically, that's why I know about it. And please don't only take diazepam that's prescribed, please. It's too dangerous as acquiring it any other way. Random tongue spasms. Oh, here we go. This is the stuff that I like. Right, this area here. Numbness, tingling, feeling like it's drooping, feeling like your lips and tongue aren't yours, spasms, twitches, all around here. The parasympathetic's very much in control of a lot of this. And it all gets shut down because the sympathetic overrides it. So any feelings that you're getting around here, I'm not surprised. And don't worry, I've had them all. And this is the thing, this is what I mean about there is no symptom that anxiety cannot cause. And when I say anxiety, I do not mean fight or flight. When you are in an anxiety state and your nervous system is firing completely wrong, there is literally no end to the symptoms that you can get. How do my friends and family deal with it? Well, if I'm honest, Lauren, I don't have an enormous amount of either. My family are mostly dead, and my mum died when I was a kid. My dad died 11 years ago. It's his birthday tomorrow, actually. He'd have been 72. My dad died 11 years ago. My sister and I don't speak. We haven't spoken for years, and that's it, really. So I don't really have any family to deal with. And I only have quite a select few friends. So is it bad to be on sertraline for life? No. I don't think it's bad to be on any medication for life. But I think it's bad to be on it if it's not doing anything. But I don't think you should just suddenly stop either. Antidepressants, serotonin doesn't have anything to do with anxiety directly. But some studies have shown, which is why they prescribe them, that it can dampen down parts of the brain that are sensitized to anxiety. But my experience with antidepressants is they do absolutely fuck all. I maxed out sertraline for years. I maxed out fluoxetine for years. I maxed out mirtazapine for years, and none of them did anything. Mirtazapine I still take, but at lower doses, it is more sedative. So I'm down to a low dose of mirtazapine, and it's just to help me sleep. And I'll stop my medication. I also take pregabalin, by the way. I'll stop my medication as and when I feel better, completely recovered. That's when I'll deal with that. I'm not going to start fucking about with my body by suddenly removing a chemical that it's been getting for years. And does it help? Well, clearly not, because I've been taking it for years and it didn't make me any better. I think pregabalin does help with panic disorder. I think it does. I think the mirtazapine definitely helps with sleep and the morning. For me, when I first wake up, I'm generally all right for an hour or two. But that's a side effect of mirtazapine as opposed to its antidepressant qualities, because it has sedative side effects. Right, still scrolling through some comments. I'm sorry, guys. I'm scrolling past. You are welcome for messages. I'm scrolling past the comments where you're replying to each other, and it's great that you're supporting each other, by the way. Keep doing it. Oh, Karen, I can hardly feel my pulse, and that scares me. That was the worst. That's worse for me. I can handle a racing heart. What I can't handle now is where it feels like it's unbearably slow. Joseph, thanks for the gifts, my friend. It's not necessary, but thank you. But please, nobody feel obligated to send me gifts, but I do appreciate you showing your appreciation. But I honestly, that's not why I do this. I do this purely to help people. It's the only reason I do this. Eye twitching, you know, last week I had it for 4 days in my eye, and then I got it in my thumb. My thumb was just like this constantly, and then it changed to my finger. But tiredness and stress is the most common cause of twitching. Stop inviting me to your live, please. Sorry, I'm just talking to somebody. Go away. Someone keeps inviting me to a live. I've just had to make it go away. When your heart feels like it's about to beat out your chest. Look, none of these anxiety symptoms, low heart rate scares me more. I agree. Do you fee to talk directly at all? No, but I will talk to people directly, but I don't charge anything for it. But I will gladly talk to people and share what I've learned. Just drop me a message. My messages are open. So I'll happily talk to people. 2 months inside this mess, God bless you. If it's only been 2 months, you can get out of this very quickly, but change your behaviour now. Trust me, because 2 months will turn into 2 years very, very quickly. Getting angry, Vanessa, is all part of the sympathetic nervous system and the threat response. So getting angry is understandable with anxiety. But also, look, guys, living with anxiety is pure hell on earth. People who say, oh, you just need to get over it, you just need to get a grip, kindly go fuck yourselves and then go fuck yourself again. Because unless you've lived the hell of anxiety, it's torture. It's utter hell. So is it any wonder we get angry? Really? It's no wonder, is it? Push people away when you want them in your life. Any advice? Look into the 4 attachment. Fuck, what's it called? I think just Google the 4 attachment types or the 4 attachment styles. I can't remember. I think it's 4 attachment types, and it will come up. And one of them is dismissive avoidant. Read about that. There's a podcast called Therapist Uncensored. They've got lots of information on it. I'm a dismissive avoidant as well, so look into that. Oh, Globus, God, I still struggle swallowing. Like my swallowing reflex, I just cannot fucking swallow. I'll have food in my mouth and I just physically cannot swallow it. It's horrendous. And then your feeling of that lump in the throat and stuff stuck in your throat, it's just horrible, absolutely horrible. My comments has just scrolled to the bottom again all of a sudden. So again, I'm scrolling back through the comments. Promise I'm not purposely missing people. Yeah, as someone saying here, feel the same. To have a drink with you when you're eating it. I'm the same. It really fucks me off as well. And I know it will go eventually, but it fucks me off, and especially when you're in the house on your own as well, like I am, and you think you're going to choke. It's exposure therapy in itself. It's just eating. Excuse me. Sorry, it takes me a while because I get every time someone follows me and likes and everything, which I appreciate, obviously, by the way, love it, appreciate it. But it gives a line in my comments, so I have to scroll past quite a lot to get to the next comment. Been almost 2 years. Look, it's been 20 years. My adult life has been destroyed by anxiety. The only reason I survived and was able to continue working and all the rest of it was because I was also an alcoholic, and alcohol was the only way I could survive. I am in no way suggesting that people go down that route, by the way, but I'm saying it was the only reason I was able to survive. But the wheels came off that in 2016, which is 8 years ago. And I've been mostly sober since 2017, but I kept relapsing because of my anxiety. I kept relapsing. I've been sober now for 3.5 years, but it was the only way I got through my 20s was alcohol. It's the only way. I wouldn't have been able to do it without that. Panic attacks for 3 years. Yeah, the panic switch. Everybody, if you've got panic disorder, you're suffering from multiple panic attacks, buy the book, The Panic Switch, and read it. It's the only book you need. I'm telling you, it is the way to recover from panic attacks. And essentially, you do simply, and it sounds really simple, but you just basically say, well, fucking do it then. Just do your worst. But you have to practice over and over again approaching it that way. And then eventually panic comes along and it fucks off straight away because it knows what you're going to do. And it's an unbelievable thing when it happens. Like I said, I used to have between 10 and 15 every single day. I'd wake up in the night having panic attacks, wake up gasping for air and having panic attacks, in waking up having a panic attack. Not waking up and then having one. I would wake up having a panic attack. Horrendous. What else have we got, Cad? Is anyone else? My diagnoses, for anyone who's interested, are agoraphobia, monophobia, generalised anxiety disorder, panic disorder, emetophobia. Have I missed any? But they're my flavours of anxiety. But to be honest with you, they're all just a manifestation of the same problem, which is fear. Is fear of fear. It all boils down to being afraid of fear. Because the truth was, if we got diagnosed with cancer or the worst thing happened to us, we would deal with it. I know somebody who has had exactly the anxiety that we're talking about, right? A chap I know through AA, right? And found his own way to cope with it. So he's just fine managing it in his own little way. He's had cancer 4 times. And I said to him, how the fuck have you coped with that? And he said, it's weird. When it happens, you just deal with it. You just get on with it and you just focus on the next appointment. And it's really weird. It's almost like the anxiety just goes away whilst you're dealing with this. And the last cancer he had was serious shit. He had to have the Whipple procedure, which is where they have to take out a lot of your insides as a result, you know. And he says you just deal with it. So my point was, the thing that we think we're afraid of is not the thing we're afraid of. The thing we're afraid of is fear. So in agoraphobia, we're not afraid of the outside. We're not afraid to walk down the street or drive our car or go into a supermarket. We're afraid of the fear we feel when we do that. We are obviously afraid of getting a life-threatening illness, but really what we're afraid of is the fear we're going to feel when we get told we've got it. That's what we're afraid of. And we're trying to avoid the feeling of fear all the time. Fear of, someone said, yeah, anyone else fear of death's been my thing forever. It started as a child. My fear of death and dying. Can't believe I found someone who gets it. I resonate with you so much. Bless you, Caroline. I'm so glad you've found somebody that you can resonate with, because when I started my TikToks, I had no idea that there were other people out there. I honestly thought I was the worst case of anxiety that there had ever been in the world ever, and that nobody else had suffered the way that I had suffered or was suffering. So I started making TikToks, and that's when I started finding people. And I'm blown away that I've got 13,500 followers now. Like, it blows my mind, really. All I do is share my experience, share what I've learned, share what works. It all lies in behaviour. All of it is. Anxiety is caused by behaviour in response to fear plus time. That's it. That's how anxiety is caused. Now, don't get me wrong, there could be traumas and things along the way, but what turns that fear into a disorder is the behaviour in response to fear over a period of time. Safety seeking, asking for reassurance, Googling, avoidance, all that stuff. That's what causes it to become a disorder. Over a period of time, the brain learns and sensitizes and learns and sensitizes, and it just, that's why it's progressively worse as well. But the formula for recovery is exactly the same. It's behaviour in response to fear plus time. The only thing that has to change is the behaviour. That's the only thing that has to change. And you have to change the behaviour for long enough for the anxiety to go away. And if you can completely recover, and there are people who have completely recovered, many that you will find. I only found them though once I'd found out how to recover and started making TikToks about how I'd worked out how to recover and found the right information. And then I started finding the people that had recovered. I was like, where the fuck have these people been all my life? You know, Josh Fletcher, Drew Linzelatter, Glenn, anxiety coach, all people that have recovered. Heavy head feeling. I've got pressure in my head at the moment, all across the top of my head. It's a really common thing. Your thoughts on diazepam? It causes more problems than it solves. That's my opinion. Bad for two reasons. One, as soon as you feel any sense of anxiety or panic, you run to diazepam to take to avoid it. So it's a form of avoidance. It's also a safety behaviour because you carry it with you everywhere. And it's very addictive. The withdrawal from benzos is life-threatening. So my opinion, and as somebody who still takes diazepam because I have to, because of the withdrawal that I get if I don't, I've been taking it for so long because I've been prescribed it for years. No, it causes more problems than it solves. That's my opinion. That being said, I do believe that it has a place in recovery. It's very difficult to actually manage that place in recovery, to be honest. Hyperventilation during exercise is very common. It's going down the drain. Yeah, I feel that. So I have to force myself to do things. I don't know if I'm fundamentally a lazy bastard. I don't think I am. The anxiety makes it so everything is difficult. So my tip to everybody who is bogged down with fatigue, the intensity and the pressure of the symptoms, the feeling in the body, being unable to tolerate it, is do shit slower. Just do everything slower. Yes, it'll mean you achieve less in the day, but so the fuck what? But just do everything slower. Is doing one job slower is better than doing no jobs at all. The best thing you gain from exposure therapy, life. I was locked in this bedroom for the best part of 2 years. I was mostly in this bedroom for way longer than that, but I didn't leave the house at all, and I could barely leave my bed. So what have I gained from exposure therapy? A life. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't periods of the day where I am intensely anxious. There are. So today has been one of those days where I've had a couple of pockets, an hour or two here and there, where I physically couldn't move because of the physical pressure of anxiety that I was under. It doesn't mean that everything's perfect, but yeah, end of life. So feeling like you're not real or not in your own body is derealization and depersonalization, or depersonalization and derealization, DPDR. And it is an inbuilt part of the fear response. And so the first thing is to understand what's going on. So I'll just explain it quickly, and apologies to anyone who's heard me explain this before, but if you're in a burning building, you're trapped in a room in a burning building, who you are, who you love, what your favourite food is, your favourite TV show on Netflix, your favourite football team, whatever that makes up your personality is no use to the brain. So in that moment, you are depersonalised. Right? The brain just simply shuts it down because it's of no use. Derealisation is the brain's ability to try and to use all of the data that it's getting through your senses, eyes, ears, nose, mouth, skin, everything it can see, hear, smell, to map your surroundings, detach you from this fire, map your surroundings and figure out a way out of this, right? So your brain doesn't physically, and your consciousness doesn't physically leave your body, but your brain is so powerful that it can imagine doing so using the data that it's got. Now, in a fire, in a burning building, it makes complete sense, doesn't it? Why your personality is shut down and why the brain would do this. The problem you're now stuck in is that the DPDR itself is the fire. The feeling of DPDR is the fire. So you've become anxious, you've noticed this feeling, you've obviously Googled it from what the things it's saying, you've obviously Googled it, you've obviously gone down that rabbit hole, you've started researching it, you're desperately trying to make it stop, the same as I did. I hated DPDR. I'd be in the bathroom splashing my face with cold water, looking at myself in the mirror, wondering whether I was real or not. I even live here. Is this even my job? Is this who I am? Is my name really Tom? All sorts of crazy thoughts like that. But the DPDR becomes the fire, so you get stuck in a cycle. So that was the key for me, was understanding why is the part of the brain, what is this fucking for? Do you know what I mean? What is DPDR? Why is it there? And the fear response isn't clever enough to know what to activate and when. It's just kind of on or all not. People generally have their favourite symptoms that are their biggest problem, but ours a fucker. But acceptance is the answer. Air hunger and racing. Air hunger's horrible. I have to go soon for 2 reasons. My dog looks like he needs a pee. My phone's on 10% and it's nearly 11 o'clock. Have you got anything else that's like urgent that I would like to answer to help people? I'm probably going to go, guys, because I can't see anything else that I haven't already answered. But before I go, the information that I talk about, everything that I talk about, the books that I recommend you read, the podcasts where I've learned all about this stuff, to my TikToks that I've made about pretty much everything that we've talked about, it's all on my website. It's all there. It's free. There's no adverts. I'm not trying to get your money or your email address. I promise you, it's entirely free. The links to books I don't get commission on. Everything I do is for free because I want to help people, because I don't want people to suffer the 20 years that I did. Okay? That's genuinely why I do what I do. Use it. Put some blogs on there as well. I've started writing blogs as well for people that want to read in a little bit more detail. Go check it out. All right? And I'm going to start posting my lives so you can rewatch them. So I've been downloading them. It takes a bit of time to process them and cut out the bits that are not really necessary. I'm going to be putting them on YouTube and linking them on my website as well. So yeah, probably going to go. I'm going to be again, what day is it tomorrow? Tuesday. I will be live again tomorrow, but it might be a little bit... Oh no, I came live at 10 o'clock, so probably about the same time. I'm going out to an AA meeting tomorrow night. But thank you all, everybody. Be kind to yourselves. I promise you can get better. It just takes time and practice. So yeah, don't lose hope. Whatever you do, do not lose hope. I'm sending my love to you all. Take care.